So I work for a company called Tech, which you can think of as Tezos Labs. Essentially, it's an R&D hub in London for anything Tezos. And as part of this role, I run the decentralized finance ecosystem / OpenFi, because that's here what we're here to talk about, for both Tezos and that new chain called Etherlink that we're coming up with, which is a layer 2 blockchain that inherits its security from the Tezos L1. And I also look after Etherlink itself, designing the right specs, making sure that it's actually fit for purpose and can touch the end user, which is, as you can probably tell at this point, our main focus, making sure that, like, you know, the 2 million users that are on chain currently can find some things to do with Etherlink, but more importantly than that, the 400 million users with a centralized exchange account, but most of which are not on chain, can actually find something interesting to do on chain going forward. I think, you know, like OpenFi, to me, it rings of two things. On the one hand, you had, like, since 2020, really, it started before that, but it was very small. You had DeFi, so decentralized finance on chain, where people are doing stuff that are mostly circular and self-contained within the on-chain world. Okay, so you can do some stuff on chain with Ether or with Tez, which is the XTZ token for Tezos, and Etherlink, and things like that, because they take their value from the on-chain world. You don't need any information from somewhere else to do this. Then you had the oracles and stuff, which brought some on-chain aspects to this. At the end of the day, this is very limited in scope, because not that many things are on-chain, and a lot of people care about, like, the value of their house, or like how they pay day-to-day their coffee, and things like that. And that's where OpenFi really takes its meaning. Things that people would use for financial applications day-to-day, that are, like, already quite well served by a lot of, like, centralized traditional applications, and some of which could be improved, enhanced by putting them on chain. And that's what I call OpenFi. A lot of people are focusing on, like, putting the user back in control and having them have access to their money at all times and however they want and take it anywhere they want. Sure thing, but at the end of the day, money is issued by the state. If we're talking about stablecoin, doesn't make that much sense to us. A lot more meaningful, I think, is that ability to have your money do more for you. So, for example, it's sitting on your bank account right now. Maybe it's earning, I don't know, 3%. And that's fine, but maybe it could do a lot more, even in a flexible way, for you or for others, and you would get compensated for this or something. That's very doable with what we've built as building blocks on DeFi. And that's something that we're trying to port more and more to normal users. So those 400 million users who are crypto aware but not crypto native, might have a centralized exchange account, might have been on BlockFi when it was still around, things like that, but don't really, like, you know, they are not hardcore fanatics, which I am, about Bitcoin retaining its value in the case of a third world war or anything like that. They just want their money to do more with modern tech stacks that enable that kind of composability. And that's why I think OpenFi could be important if we had the right building blocks to push it to normal use cases, normal users. I think it's two pieces, really. One is user experience. I think many people you've asked today might have answered the same thing. But to be honest with you, user experience is entangled with the second part, which is discussing with elected officials, discussing with regulators, discussing with incumbent companies, like, you know, Visa, MasterCard, the guys who make the point of sale software, WorldPay, and so on. And guys like on the other side of OpenFi for investments and things related to having a more retail-focused financial system. That's about, like, you know, regulators that are, like, linked to Congress or elected officials in many, many ways. And that's not, like, the enemy. Those are actually the people. Like, at the end of the day, you have a Congress that's elected, and that Congress gives its powers to agencies in the EU, in the UK, in the US. And for those guys to really understand what we're trying to do, first we need to understand ourselves what it is that we're trying to do. And how we actually improve people's outcomes or people's experience with finance applications. I think that's like coming up with like efforts like IDOS, for example, making sure that like every time you want to use a new app, which will be permissioned, it's a bad word in crypto, but it's actually very necessary. We want to prevent some of the stuff that were like we found out about by having that 100-year history in traditional finance of what not to do. So in order to prevent them, we need to know some information about you. We don't need to know everything. We can keep the data in a very confidential way and things like that, but there needs to be some things that emerge from that. And only then can you get a user experience Robinhood-like, Revolut-like, all of the guys working on Web3 currently, actually. Or like just a good financial experience that is heads and shoulders better than what you have currently. If we do roughly the same or slightly better, I don't think people will move that easily. It's a bit of both at the moment. On the one hand, like, you know, like everything that is like bread and butter in TradFi, that like, you know, I see enormous value in, and that is not done properly in crypto, will go away. It's a matter of time. Maybe there's a few more years of like an in-between, a gray area, but they will go away. Everything related to insider trading with people with actual private information about something, taking advantage of that to hit the markets, that is obviously not desirable. That even if you're an officer of one of those firms that has some public, non-public information to do something, if you're not doing it, people might wonder if you're doing it. So like for very few people, is it actually a good thing? And for things related to anti-money laundering, where like you can have various views on this, and there's some like very libertarian people in crypto and things like that. At the end of the day, those rules are there for a reason, and the people, meaning 70 million people in the UK and in France, 340 million people in the US, have decided that this is a good thing. And you're not going to go against the majority, like that's democracy. And so at the end of the day, for this to be baked into what we build, we need very strong building blocks that are easy to use for non-crypto people, non-blockchain people, to enable OpenFi. And so regulation can be a feature in that context, but it can be a bug, as we've seen recently, if the dialogue with the regulator is not fluid. And I'll give you an example in Europe, and that's actually getting better. ESMA is actually in charge of a lot of things related to crypto and blockchain regulation in the EU, the FCA in the UK. Both of those agencies are having massive turnover in their staff. Basically, they can get staff who don't know much about blockchain, then they get trained, and once they're trained, they're quite desirable, quite good, and they get poached by private sector at double the salary or like some very large increases in salary. That's not helpful, and that's something that we should find a way around to actually make that dialogue with the regulator something that's ongoing, and where you can hope to speak with the same person for like a few years at least. And that's actually like improving. They've increased the salaries a bit. They've changed the scope of the people who work on crypto, who now work on crypto and something else a lot of the time. And yeah, I think that's going to improve, and you see that with MyCar and a lot of recent regulations. I met Luis and the team when I was in East Denver, actually, earlier this year. And it immediately resonated with me because that was something I was looking for without really knowing that I was looking for it. And within the broader Etherlink ecosystem, we wanted to enable all of the things we talked about earlier, about like, you know, like baking in some kind of rules and some kind of like higher amount of information about the users in whatever would be done, especially on apps that are, you know, listed on the App Store, on the Google Play Store, things like that. And for this, that's actually what we need. At the end of the day, if a user needs to give information about themselves again and prove everything again on every single app they decide to use, then you kill what's the name of the game in crypto, which is composability. Composability is that idea that, you know, I give you your application maybe $100 today, and then I can reuse those $100 and that receipt that you've issued against it for something else. That makes your money do more and gives you more possibilities, better yield, better control over it. And that's something that you can only do really if you're interacting with several apps. But for those apps to be a real thing, they need to know some things about you, especially if you're going to do things related to the real world. And for that, you need a solution like iDOS, a solution like good standardized KYC providers that actually standardize the data that's produced after the KYC is done, after the proof of personhood is done, or anything that they want. And that's only possible if you have one effort that actually goes through the pain of standardizing that data. So that's what attracted me to it. So on Etherlink, among the use cases that are coming up that would leverage iDOS, you have like a variety of things that mainly for now use the reusable, shareable at the user's requests KYC features that are enabled by iDOS. So typically, you have a stablecoin issuer that we might announce relatively soon, and I've spoken about them actually in previous videos, that you guys have worked with to enable an on-ramp that is very smooth, free, almost instant, including on weekends, to go from a Eurobank account to a USD-backed stablecoin, and vice versa. That's something that you can do with no limitations, with very small amounts. And you can do that by taking one KYC once, either with that issuer of stablecoin, with an app that would touch the mass market, like being listed on a mobile app store, like the Google Play Store or something, and not redo again, just being reused at the click of a button for other applications. So that thing is very useful. I would expect a lot of the KYCs being done within that ecosystem to actually result from that effort. And then things related to, for example, Hanji, which is a big decentralized exchange that we've been working on with our partners, and they were part of the accelerator I was running earlier this year, where same things are trying to touch the final user. And in order to get regular users, you need a very simple, very streamlined UX so that they get to the website, if it's a mobile app, for example, and they can straight away interact with it. And in order to do that, you need that shareable KYC feature that I think will be the first real use case of iDOS on Etherlink. Right now, you have users that are Web3 adjacent, I would say, Binance and Tezos are the name of the game. I think their profits combined are like a large share of the total profits of the industry. And that's great, and that's the first effort. They are themselves, especially in Binance's case, trying to go more Web3, more on-chain. And that's true with their Web3 wallet, for example. And so many exchanges are doing that. OKX is doing this, BitGet, Bybit, and so on. And that's with an effort of bringing users on-chain, but in a way that is maybe a walled garden, maybe protected a bit. A lot of users, normal users in particular, don't want the risk of losing all of their money on a wrong manipulation, transaction or something. They want that protection, and they've said that very clearly in many customer surveys we've run in recent months. So there's a bit of an in-between. It's not all about self-custody, actually. When you look at what comes out of those surveys, it's a bit of both. So depending on the user you're trying to target, you might have different preferences and different things that they look at. And then for the real users, like the tens of millions, these days a mediocre game has more users than the entire industry on-chain. It's surprising, and there's a reason for this. So that reason around UX, around regulation, around all of those is actually getting sorted out a bit faster than I expected, to be honest. And I would expect, within the next year or so, you look at what Coinbase is doing with their smart wallet, and to see many more users than the peak of 2021 when Binance had brought people on chain with BNB chain, for example. They had brought, I think, at that time 6 or 7 million users, something like that. I'm hoping to see an order of magnitude more or something like that for that cycle. But let's see how that pans out. At the end of the day, right now, if you look at where the market is at and what people are looking forward to in an event like ECC here or more generally, it's fair to say that the chains and the infrastructure is quite mature at this point. There's a lot of things that have been worked on, even all the way to very recently with Eigenlayer and things like that are out there, that are usable, and they're going to be improved, and it's always good, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is about what actual consumer apps we see going forward. We're spending all of our time on this. Feel free to reach out if you have any good ideas, and we're always open for more. But in general, for the whole industry, I think solely putting the focus on this for the next cycle, if you consider that we're at the beginning of one or something, is the way for the token prices to go up, probably for the excitement to come back in a way that we've seen AI take off. I mean, if we have 1/10 of the takeoff that AI had, we'll be doing super well. So, yeah.